Hello there guys, Natalia Mello here, and today I am bringing you a vlog instead of a blog because I feel like today's topic is much easier and better to understand by doing a video and explaining with my hands because I'm kind of very animated. And as a pre and postnatal trainer, this is a topic that is kind of like super hot right now. And this is a question that I get asked all the time. So today we're going to be talking about the exercises for diastasis recti. But before we go into the specifics of exercises for diastasis recti and why you need them, if you need them, and whether or not you should be doing them, we need to first explain what diastasis recti is, because I feel like there is a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation. And if you want, you can check out another blog that I have written about diastasis recti, but I'm going to give you a quick run through here so you better understand. Diastasis recti is the abdominal separation that happens in the abdominal muscles during pregnancy. So very often I see women who are pregnant kind of like freaking out. Oh my God, I have diastasis recti and I'm like 9 months pregnant. What do I do? Nothing. Because diastasis recti, it's actually kind of like a natural process of the body in order to make room for the growing baby. So for example, let's say that here are the two abdominal muscles. And then whenever your belly starts to grow, those muscles need to kind of like separate in order for there to be room for the growing baby. So whenever the belly starts to go like this and the abdominal muscles start to separate, there is a connective tissue here in the middle that's called linea alba. That linea alba, that connective tissue, is also stretched. So that's what diastasis recti is. Another misconception about diastasis recti is that you need to measure just the gap. So Natalia, what do you mean? So after you have the baby, then you go and a lot of women get tested to see whether or not they have diastasis recti. And the professional who should be doing this is a women's health physical therapist, not really your OBGYN, but a women's health physical therapist. They are the professional trained to do that properly. And so, and a lot of women do it at home and all of that. So a lot of times it is considered clinical diastasis recti if the gap here in between the two muscles is 2 fingers wide, like give and take 2.5 centimeters, okay? Which is like 2 fingers, depending on the size of your fingers. So a lot of people get fixated with the gap, when in reality, there are other things at play when it comes to diagnosing diastasis recti. So another thing that needs to be taken into account is whether or not the linea alba has lost a lot of its elasticity. Remember, the linea alba, the connective tissue that gets stretched in between here in your abdomen. If whenever you put the fingers, even if it is just like, let's say 1 finger, but you can push your finger all the way in and it goes very deep, that tells me that the connective tissue in the linea alba has lost a lot of its elasticity. So one example that I'm going to give you is, imagine an elastic band. Okay, so this is my hair tie. If I keep this hair tie stretched like this, because that's kind of what happens with the linea alba, depending on the size of your baby, depending on how much weight you have put on during pregnancy, this is kind of what's going to happen with the connective tissue. What can happen is, just like it can happen to this elastic band, is that it's going to lose its elasticity because it's being stretched for a very long period of time. For most women, 9.5 months, depending on how soon they start to show and how soon there has been a lot of pressure on that tissue. So whenever the linea alba has lost that elasticity, that is also another sign that there might be diastasis recti. Another thing that needs to be taken into account is whether or not the diastasis is functional. What does it mean? So whenever you have diastasis recti, chances are that you're not going to have a lot of strength on your abs. So let's say that you lay flat on your back and you try to raise your legs. If you cannot keep your legs raised, if you don't have the strength to do that, for example, or you cannot do that without having like a big bulge, which that's when a lot of pressure is brought to that connective tissue, the linea alba, because you don't know how to properly distribute that pressure and you don't have the strength to do that specific movement without bringing all the pressure to the front and the weakest part of your abdomen, which in this case is going to be the linea alba. That means that diastasis might not be functional either. So these are all like the main aspects of a true diastasis recti. So if you have one gap and you can do all the things, chances are you do not have diastasis recti. But if you really struggle with strength on your abdomen, you have a significant gap of at least 2.5 centimeters, and there is a lot of depth, you probably have diastasis recti. But again, the best way to find out for sure is to speak with a women's health physical therapist. And here's where it comes that it is incredibly important to work with a trainer who specializes in moms and knows how to address these kind of conditions. A lot of times women with diastasis recti are told that they cannot do crunches. And the reason for that is because crunches, a lot of times, people do not know how to properly do a crunch. So whenever they crunch, all the pressure comes on that weak part of the connective tissue and there is a bulge. So imagine like almost like a balloon that has a very a weak part of the balloon. If you try to blow that balloon, the pressure is gonna go to that part of the balloon that is weak. So imagine your core like being a balloon. So a lot of professionals wrongly give the advice that women with diastasis recti should never, ever, ever do crunches, and that is incorrect. The correct response in that case, and this is where it comes why diastasis recti exercises are important, is because a crunch would be a more advanced movement for somebody with diastasis recti if they haven't got the basics. So let's use, for example, like a snatch. Okay, a snatch is an Olympic movement that you bring the bar all the way from the floor all the way to above your head, and then you land on a squat, in a very deep squat. That is a snatch. You are not going to take somebody who is untrained and has very little body awareness to doing a snatch right out of the gate. Why? Because they don't have the basics. They don't know, they don't have a lot of body awareness on that specific movement. So whenever you're going to start with to teach somebody to do a snatch, or to do, I don't know, a very heavy squat or something like that, you're always going to start breaking it down, the movement. And once you have, for example, let's use the snatch again as an example, you're not going to put like 200 pounds on a bar and try to go for a snatch if you've never snatched before. You're probably going to start the pattern, the path of the bar, training the path of the bar with something that it is a bit lighter. You're going to focus on the way you breathe. You're going to focus where you slide under the bar whenever you're doing the snatch. Where does the bar go? And whenever the bar is almost like hitting your hip, what do you do? So you learn the basics. You learn the little things in step by step with virtually no load. And then after you have that, almost like the whole movement in a very in a way that you almost don't have to think about it. Like think whenever you wake up, you just know that you have to brush your teeth. It's the same thing. Whenever that person that is doing the snatch, they know the path of the bar, like on top of their head without having to think much about it. That's when they're ready to start adding some load to the bar. You don't go from not knowing how to do a snatch to putting all this weight on the bar and hoping that it's going to work. back to the diastasis recti. So whenever we talk about diastasis recti exercises, it's not that you cannot do crunches. You cannot do crunches right now until you nail the basics. And what are the basics? The basics are the basic exercises that a lot of people say that it is diastasis recti exercises. So you're gonna learn how you breathe. So are you a rib breather? So you go like, and you expand your ribs, or are you a bear down breather? Whenever you breathe and you're about to lift, you bear down and put pressure on your pelvic floor. At what point of your movements do you see that your diastasis is starting to bulge? So a lot of things need to be taken into account, and then you have to start with the very, very basic. And this is especially important for women who just had a baby, women who are recent postpartum. That rehabilitation part of the work is incredibly important. And the reason for that is because you literally do not really know that body that you're living in. So you need to start to learn about your body. You need to start to learn what happens with your body when you breathe a certain way, when your baby cries in the middle of the night and you have to get up very fast, and like what happens. And you are gonna kind of mimic that kind of movement in a more controlled environment. So you're going to start with the basic in a rehabilitation and like progressive overload manner, which progressive overload is the most basic principle of strength conditioning, muscle hypertrophy, any kind of training. So you are going to start with the exercises for your diastasis with the very basic stuff. So the heel slide, which probably at the time of this recording, you are gonna see a link right here at the bottom of the video to the free resource that I have created for you about ab rehabilitation on the postpartum period. You can just download that and you can see some of the exercises. But until you download, don't stop watching this video to get the download. Wait a little bit. So you can start with like heel slides. So you basically keep one foot on the ground and then you slide the other foot and then you slide the other foot, and one foot is always the base. That is a very simple movement. Once you nail down, you really get that perfect and you get the breathing correct, then what do? You lift that foot from the ground, so that is going to create a little bit more pressure on your abdomen, and then you slide the other foot. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging because you're not going to have one foot resting on the floor. That foot's going to be raised, which tends to increase the pressure on your abdominal area. So you have progressed from having one foot on the ground to lifting the foot, and then from that your next progression is probably going to be to try to bring both legs forward. All of that you are going to do slowly and in a very controlled manner, paying attention to what happens to your breath, to your pelvic floor, to your abdominal area, to your diastasis. And once all of these movements and all this progression has been accomplished, has been done in a way in which everything is almost automatic, and you can immediately spot when you are kind of like losing control of the movement, that is when you're ready to progress to the next stage. And the next stage is going to be by adding load or doing more advanced work. So this is kind of the way that we do things in a Mother Strong League, which is the program that I have for moms, which is a program that helps moms, expecting moms, and moms who have already had their baby regain their fitness and confidence in a safe and effective way. So whenever you first join, if you have diastasis recti, or if you are like within 3-6 weeks and you've been given the all clear by your doctor, 3 to 6 weeks postpartum, then you're going to start with the very basic breathing movements. Once that has been mastered, you get moved to another phase that is going to start to give you a little bit more challenging movement. So you're going to probably start doing some kind of air squats. And after you do the air squats, we're going to add load, and that load's going to be dumbbells. And then after you master with the dumbbells, we are going to add the barbell. Once the barbell, like, everything is done in a progressive way. And that is what you need to do with the diastasis. So whenever you start with a very basic movement, you master that movement, you go to the next movement that is a bit more advanced, and so forward. Whenever you learn how to properly control the pressure and you know what is happening almost at all times, then yes, you can start to try and work to do crunches. The thing with crunches is because there is some kind of a spinal flexion, which is this movement right here. This movement, imagine that your abdomen, it's almost like a canister, or even like, let's use this bottle of water as, and this is not an advert, by the way. Use this bottle as a example. So whenever you have a spinal flexion, it's almost like the top of the bottle is gonna go here. It's hard to do with this bottle because it's very kind of hard, but there is gonna be, if I take the lid, it's probably going to be able to fold. The reason I cannot do when the lid is here is because it generates so much pressure that it is not possible to do. So that movement of spinal flexion is going to increase the abdominal pressure, the pressure inside your abdominal area. And whenever that pressure is not properly controlled, then that's when it can become a problem for diastasis recti. So when people say, oh, you can't do crunches are not a safe exercise for diastasis recti, planks are not a safe exercise for diastasis recti. Yeah, they might not be safe for the beginning of your journey, but as you progress and you learn the basics and you have that foundation and that body awareness, because for a mom who is recently postpartum, that body is new. I remember after I had both of my kids, I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, whoa, I do not know that body. And not in a bad way, but it was just very different. So I had to become familiar with my body, its abilities, what it could and it couldn't do, what didn't feel comfortable. And that's why just the advice, listen to your body, a lot of times is not good enough because you don't really know what you're listening for. And whenever you're like doing some kind of movement, you don't like, things are supposed to be challenging, but how challenging are they supposed to be? What is it a red flag, and what is it that you should be trying to listen for that isn't right? So that is why it is so important to have that progress and that slow load, so you can get to a point in which you know your body and it just does what it needs to do. So if anybody tells you that you only can do diastasis friendly exercise, that isn't correct. That isn't a forever kind of thing. It is a for now kind of thing. You have to go back to the basics, do the groundwork, learn about your body, learn about your tendencies, about the way you breathe, and all of that. Work on that foundation and slowly bring yourself to a point in which you can do more advanced work without causing harm. And another thing before I go that I wanted to tell you guys is that it is normal to have diastasis recti even up to like 6 months, a year. Like, diastasis recti is not abnormal. I don't understand, me as a fitness professional, a pre and postnatal trainer, I don't really understand and get why women at 6 weeks postpartum are being measured for diastasis recti. 60% of women have diastasis recti at 6 weeks postpartum. It is just like normal. Your body needs time to heal and to go back and to rehabilitate itself. It's been stretching for like 9.5 months, 10 months, depending on how far your pregnancy has gone. So it is going to take time. So don't freak out if at your 6 weeks checkup, your doctor or whoever it is tells you, oh my God, you have diastasis recti. It isn't anything abnormal. Most women have, over more than half of women have diastasis recti at 6 weeks postpartum. And if anybody tells you that you can't do something because you have diastasis recti, forever, like, oh, you cannot do crunches ever again because you have diastasis recti, I would highly encourage you to look for a second opinion and to always search for professionals who specialize in pregnant women and postpartum women, because these people are properly trained. And I know that because I have done several courses on the topic. They know who to refer you to. They know how to work around your limitations, the limitations that you have right now. You might not have these limitations 6 months down the line. So it is important to keep on challenging your body and to not feel discouraged about not being able to do something now. Okay. If you'd like to learn more about my programs, just head over to my website. I'm going to put all the links right here. And hopefully by the time of this recording, the PDF, the free PDF that I'm creating for the postpartum moms will be ready. And the link will be down here as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know and comment right here in the area, in the comments area, if you'd like me to do more videos like this, and I'll be more than happy to help you and guide you in whichever way I can. Okay. I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.